Okay.
All right. Welcome to the April pre-Easter meeting of the Western North Carolina Asheville Users Group. Today we have a presentation by Dan. I'll let him introduce himself in regard to that. Nice full group today, so looking forward to it. And don't want to waste any time. I know people have places to be on this holiday weekend. So Dan, I should mention everyone should probably turn their camera off to conserve bandwidth and minimize distractions as well as mute yourselves. But Dan, take it away.
Okay. All right. My name is Dan Calloway, and it is April the 4th, 2026. And this is, as Brent said, the Western North Carolina Linux Users Group Asheville. And let me go ahead and start the screen share to get the presentation going. Select the window. Wait a minute. Now it's giving me trouble already.
Okay.
I'm not getting the window, Brent, that I normally supposed to get. I'm getting a allow Meet Jitsi to see your screen. Select window or screen. They've changed it again on us. Hold on a minute. Entire screen. There we go. Okay. Allow. And let me see if I can get to it now and see if you can see it. All right. Can you see the presentation?
Yep, we can see it now.
Okay. I've got something that's come up in front of my presentation, unfortunately.
So you already have what see your screen, so maybe that's like a second thing.
Well, it's saying allow meet.jitsi.si to see your screen, and I've said yes, but the only block that's come up is a not now.
Do the drop down because it wants you to select which screen.
I did that.
Okay.
Okay. Which is
there
that
any
one
way
right there. There we go.
Okay.
But it's still got the box now, the whole box, and it's overlapping my presentation.
And did you click allow?
I did, but let me see here. Let me try it again. Come on.
Being dumb.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm clicking allow and it's not doing anything.
Let's try not now and see if that blows it all away.
Nope. Not doing anything.
Maybe restart, rejoin.
Goodness gracious.
Is there any way to move that window?
No. Let me see here. Let me do a mute website notification while sharing. Now we do allow. No, it's not letting me do it.
Yeah, it just seems like a bug.
Entire screen. I've got entire screen and I'm clicking allow and it's not letting me get rid of that window.
Yeah, but you are sharing, so.
Yeah, except it's going to be over top of stuff I need to look at. Yeah. I don't want to have to restart again because I got everything set up.
Can you just restart Jitsi?
Yeah, it's possible. Let me.
You're in there twice is the problem.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, you've got if you log out of Dan, I think, and that may do it.
All right, hold on just a minute. Let me log out. I'll log back in. Okay. All right, I'm back.
All right, we can hear you.
You can start screen sharing again. And I've got the same presentation, different from what I saw last month. I'm going to do entire screen again. And allow. There we go.
All right.
All right. And so let me go now to the presentation itself. All right. Now can everybody see it?
We can.
All right. Okay. So the purpose of this presentation is I'm going to show you guys how you can build your own ADS-B receiver and broadcaster. I don't know how many of you are fond of aviation or aircraft or want to be pilots. I'm one of those. I had an opportunity to do it when I was in the Navy years and years ago. I didn't take advantage of it, and I'm sorry I didn't now because I love everything aviation. So I looked at this and I thought, well, you know, I've got a spare Raspberry Pi, and let me just go ahead and see if I can build this. I've been online now for 24 days, nonstop, 24/7, and it took me 1 day to get the equipment I needed in, and an afternoon to build it. So let me get started with the presentation. So this is an overview of showing you how to build a low-cost, high-performance ADS-B and a receiver and a Flight Radar 24 feeding station using a Raspberry Pi, and in my case, I used a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus single board computer, and I ordered an RTL SDR USB dongle from Amazon, and I got a dedicated 1090 megahertz antenna, and that was all I needed. The build doesn't require any kind of specialty electronics knowledge, of which I do not have, and the total cost of the project is under $130. In my case, since I had a spare Raspberry Pi laying around, wasn't doing anything with it, it cost me $37 to build this. And as I said, it can be completed in an afternoon. Okay, so let's look at background. What is an ADS-B? You may be wondering what that is. ADS-B stands for Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast. All right, and the modern commercial and private aircraft are all equipped with ADS-B transponders. And these transponders continuously broadcast data to anyone who wants to intercept it. Mainly air traffic control and anybody that wants to do what I'm doing. So some of the data that's captured in the ADS-B are aircraft identity. It's called an ICAO, sorry. That's the International Civil Aviation Organization, 24-bit hex address and call sign with flight number. It also gives you the GPS derived position, which is latitude, longitude, and altitude of the aircraft above the ground. It gives you the velocity, the heading, and vertical rate of climb or descent of the aircraft as well. And lastly, it also gives you the squawk code and the emergency status of the aircraft. Now, all aircraft are given squawk codes by the ATC, the air traffic controller. But in the case of an emergency, an aircraft can squawk 7777, and that indicates to air traffic control and anybody else, even if their radio isn't working, that he has an emergency situation. All right, it's kind of like 911. All right, so the broadcasting here occurs on the 1090 megahertz radio frequency, and that is performed at intervals of about 1/2 of a second. So every half second, a broadcast signal goes out from the aircraft, from the transponder. Since the ADS-B is unencrypted and one-way broadcast, any suitably equipped receiver within range or sight range of the aircraft, typically 200 to 350 nautical miles, depending on the altitude of the aircraft itself, will be able to pick up the aircraft in flight and receive that information. And it's received in radio signal format. And I'll explain here in a moment how that information gets transferred. Okay, so a platform such as Flight Radar 24. Now, Flight Radar 24 is a business, and they're headquartered out of Stockholm, Sweden. They receive my data, which is digitally converted by the dongle that's received by the antenna, gets digitally transferred or transposed, and then transmitted to Sweden via the internet. All right. And so that information is done by not just me, but thousands of other volunteers around the world. And these people send their broadcast information. So I'm doing a local area, Asheville Regional Airport, and I'm not too far from the Asheville Regional Airport. And so my information gets thrown in with all the other data that other people put up to Flight Radar 24, and then anybody with an account on Flight Radar 24 can see what I see. There are other platforms besides Flight Radar 24. There's one called Flight Aware. You may be aware of that. Let me grab something to drink here real quick. My mouth is dry. And then there was a third one that I'm aware of called ADSB Exchange. At some point, I'm going to bring Flight Aware into the fold here because I can run Flight Aware and Flight Radar 24 simultaneously on the same Raspberry Pi. Was not aware of that until a few days ago. So I'll be doing that soon. All right, so let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so what are the hardware requirements? In my case, it can be any Raspberry Pi. It can be Raspberry Pi 4, 5, or it can be a 3B plus. Cannot be a Model 2. Has to be at least a Raspberry Pi Model 3B plus. Now, the 3B plus is a quad-core ARM Cortex A53. In my case, 1.4 gigahertz. It's got 1 gig of RAM. It has built-in Wi-Fi, Ethernet, Bluetooth. I am using the Wi-Fi, not the Ethernet connectivity. It works really, really well. It has a 40-pin GPIO, and the 3B Plus offers ideal performance. It's got a good performance to power balance. This is what I like about the 3B Plus. Is why I chose it. And the cost of that Raspberry Pi, if I recall, was somewhere around, I think I paid $35 to $45 for it. It's just a bare board. Okay, the other thing you need is you need an RTL SDR USB dongle. The RTL portion stands for Realtek. The SDR stands for Software Defined Radio. And of course, you know what USB is. It's a dongle that you connect into the USB port of your Raspberry Pi. And to that dongle, you connect the antenna. All right. And in my case, it's an SMA connection, which means it's a mini coax. It's not a standard coaxial connection. The lead is about, I would say, 20 inches long. So it connects to the dongle, to the Raspberry Pi, and then I mount the antenna. I've got it mounted inside the house, but it's at the window. And so it's able to see the sky. And so I'm getting pretty good coverage doing that. Now, if I mounted it on the roof or in the attic, which I can't do because I live in a townhouse apartment, I would get much better reception probably and go much further out than I do. All right, so the RTL SDR dongle is a blog version 3 dongle, and it's good because of thermal stability. It doesn't have a tendency to overheat, and the cost of that dongle is about, I think I paid, with that and the antenna together, I paid $37. So the dongle by itself is about $20. So the antenna is about 15. You also need a 1090 megahertz antenna, which I purchased from Amazon. And the dedicated ADSB band antenna is approximately 5 to 7 dB gain. And It's a perfect antenna for this kind of project. You can build your own quarter wave ground plane antenna if you know what you're doing. And there is some information I'll put in the show notes of this presentation that will point you to a blog where a guy shows you exactly how to build your own DIY quarter wave ground plane antenna. The reason I mention that is because it's superior to what I'm using. And so you would get better coverage. All right, let's move on to some other things here that we need. We need some other supporting items such as a coaxial cable. If you want to use a regular coax instead of the mini coax, you can get an adapter and do that. And then you can run coax outside up to a pole or whatever you want to do, up to the roof. You'll need a micro SD card, minimum 16 gigabytes in capacity, class 10, A1 rated. I'm using a Samsung Endurance Series SanDisk Endurance. It's recommended for 24/7 operation. I think I paid about $8 to $15 for it. You'll need a power supply for the Raspberry Pi, which is a 5-volt, 2.5 amp power supply. And the reason for that is you're not going to get very good coverage if you don't have power for that Raspberry Pi at all. And it's actually not going to work. And so anyway, the other thing that you might think about getting is if you're in a high density area for electromagnetic radiation devices, you might want to think about getting a low noise amplifier. It's called an LNA filter. And that's another $20 to $40. So as I mentioned, the total cost for this build is about $130. All right, so let's move on to the next slide. And this is the software stack. So all the software that's used in this project is open source. None of it's proprietary. It's freely available. Following components apply here. We've got the Raspberry Pi OS Lite 64-bit. I'll show you that here in a moment, how I did it. Now, you all are probably familiar with the Raspberry Pi OS Lite 64-bit. I'm using a custom version of it, and I'll show you why here in a moment. Another thing that you're going to need is a dump 1090 mutability and a dump 1090 FA decoding engine. Okay, and that's in the dongle itself. And what that decoding engine does is it reads the raw IQ data from the RTL SDR, and it demodulates the 1090 megahertz signal, decodes mode S, and then it digitally transcribes it or transfers it so that you can then capture the digital data and send that via the internet to Stockholm, Sweden, to Flight Radar 24. By the way, Flight Radar 24, the name comes from Flight Radar 24/7, so that's why the 24 is in there. Dump 1090 mutability, that's an original community fork, widely used, well documented, and Dump 1090 FA is a flight aware version, a fork of Dump 1090. So if you're going to run Flight Aware and Flight Radar 24 simultaneously, you'll need both. And then finally, third thing here that you'll need, well, not finally, but the third thing you'll need is FR24 feed. And that feed is going to be transmitted, like I said, to Flight Radar 24. All right. And then the fourth thing here, it's an optional thing you'll need, or should, if you desire to have it, is called a Pi Aware, Flight Aware feeder, if you're going to do both Flight Aware and Flight Radar 24. And then also another optional feature is called PiStats, and that's it graphs the 1090 picture, which is broadcast up on 1080, port 1080. Now, I have another Docker application that's already using port 1080, so I'm not using port 1080 at all in my build. I'm using the Flight Radar 24 website. Okay, so let's go step by step here of how to go about doing this. The first thing you do is you need to flash the OS. And so what I'm going to do, I've got this set up. I'm not going to do the whole thing because I can't. But what I'm going to do is set this up so I can show you roughly what you need to do with yours. This is a picture, by the way, of the antenna that I'm using and the dongle. Okay, and here's where I've got the antenna position in the window. Okay. All right, so let's go back and see, I was out of it and then got back in it again. All right. All right, so I think I can do this anyway. Oh, yeah. All right, so what you need to do is you need to download, I'm running a Debian-based system here. It's MX Linux. And so I'm Debian, I think it's Debian 13 Trixie. And so what I did was I installed the Raspberry Pi Imager, which is version 2.0.6. And so I'm going to go ahead and open it. And let me sign in. All right, so here we are, and this is version 2.0.7, sorry. All right, so I've got a Raspberry Pi 3, so I just select the Raspberry Pi 3. This is what you would be doing. So you just select that, click Next. And then rather than selecting the Raspberry Pi OS 64-bit, I'm coming down here to select the other specific purpose OS right here, okay? The reason for that is I chose to do it this way as opposed to downloading the FR24 software from the Flight Radar 24 website. Works just as fine as their software, so I did it this way. So I click this, and then I come down and I select the ADSB feeder image. All right, this is compatible with any platform that uses ADSB data in a digital format. So I select it, and then I select the version 3.0.8, and then I click Next, and then I come down and I select the mass storage device that I'm got hooked to my system, which is 119.1 gigabytes. So I select that, and now what I highly recommend you do is do not bypass the customization section. All right, so here you can give your host name, whatever you want to give it. I call mine Flight Radar 24-5, and then click Next. The capital city here of where I'm located is Washington, D.C. The time zone is America, New York. You can change it if you're in a different time zone. The keyboard layout is US, and I click Next. Username I chose is Data Pioneer. I gave it the password. I'm going to leave it blank here because I'm not really setting this up. I'm just doing the dummy. If it'll let me leave it blank. Then I'm going to click Next. All right, now here's the part you need to pay attention to. I used Wi-Fi. All right, so I have my Wi-Fi set up with two bands, the 2.4 gigahertz and the 5 gigahertz band. The 5 gigahertz band is Hardy, and the 2.4 gigahertz band is Laurel, hence Laurel and Hardy. So I put in Hardy here, I put in the password for Hardy, and I confirm it, and then I click Next, and then I enable SSH. That's very important because you'll want to be able to get into your Raspberry Pi, especially if you're using Wi-Fi. So make sure that's activated. And in this case, I'm using not a public key, but password. So I select that, click Next. And then I click the write button. It'll start writing all that information to the micro SD card. All right. So when that's completed, well, let's go back to where I was. All right. So first thing is to flash the OS, as I mentioned, and do the advanced options. And then the second step is to log in and in the system state. So approximately after 60 seconds or so, after you've powered on the Raspberry Pi, you can SSH into the Pi using SSH space. And then in my case, I use the IP address of the Pi, which is 192.168.1.30. And I don't have to use a port. Okay, so, and then I SSH into and I update all the packages. So I use sudo apt update ampersand sudo apt full upgrade and then the -y switch. And then I reboot using the sudo reboot command after it's completed. Everybody knows what the ampersand is, right? For that command. Anyone not know what that means? Okay, I'm going to assume you know what it means. All right, so step 3 then is to install the RTL SDR driver and then to blacklist the DVB-T, okay? So the RTL SDR chip is normally claimed by the Linux DVB-T television driver. I've never heard of it, but there is such a driver. And this must be blocked before the SDR software can access your system. All right, so you install the RTL SDR tools using the command that's shown on the screen. I'm not going to read that off. This presentation will be available for you to go back and look at that. Then you blacklist the conflicting driver by using the command that's shown there as well. And then you plug in the RTL SDR dongle and reboot using sudo reboot. Then you verify that the dongle is recognized by using the command, which is RTL_test-T, and it should show your device without errors. Okay, that's important that you get no errors here. There's a troubleshooting section later on in case we do have errors. All right, step 4 is to install and configure the dump 1090. And so what you would do is you install the dump 1090 mutability by using the command that's shown there. That's sudo apt install dump 1090 mutability -y. And then during the installation, you select yes when prompted, or ask if the dump 1090 should start on boot. You definitely want that to be yes. Then you verify the operation by opening a web browser, and you can go to port 8080, the IP address of your Raspberry Pi. But as I mentioned, I've got port 8080 in use, and so I go to the Flight Radar 24 website instead. All right, within a few minutes, the antenna is going to be connected, and Flight Radar 24 in Stockholm, Sweden is going to see you're online. All right, so you want to review the message rates and view the statistics. I'll show you that screen here in a moment. And as I mentioned, the rates are somewhere around 300 to 1,200 messages per second. So that's quite a few messages being received. Step 5 is you register and install the Flight Radar 24 feeder. So if you don't already have an account with Flight Radar 24, you need to go to flightradar24.com/sign-in and register an account with them. It's free. And I think I have a screenshot of, let's see if I can do this real quick. Screenshot of, I don't know what happened to it, so I'm not going to mess with it. Okay, so it's the free subscription is free, so you don't have to worry about that. And there are other subscriptions. I think I'll find it here in a moment. But you want to go with the free. And then you run the official installation script, which requires internet access on the Pi, and that command is shown there. And then the installer is going to prompt you for your FR24 email address that you used when you signed up for your account, and the location, the coordinates that you are currently at. Now, you'll need to go on Google Maps or some other website and get the exact coordinates of your position, latitude and longitude, so that Flight Radar 24 knows where you're located. All right. And then you'll need to put in the antenna altitude above sea level, and also whether to use dump 1090 as the data source. You want to answer yes here. Okay. There is other ways of doing it. So, but in our case, we want to use dump 1090. All right. So you'll also obtain a unique sharing key from Flight Radar 24. You want to copy that sharing key down, record it somewhere, because that's recorded in EDC FR24 feed.ini. If it ever gets lost for some reason, you need to be able to go grab it, because that's the only way you're going to connect back to Flight Radar 24. And now then you start the feeder using that sudo systemctl command, start FR24 feed, and it should start up, and then you can verify the status by doing the sudo systemctl status FR24 feed, and it should show that you are active and running. In my case, it did. Then finally, in step 6, you want to verify that your station is on Flight Radar 24. Verify and go live, as I called it in the presentation. So you log in to flightradar24.com, you navigate to my data sharing, and my data sharing, I'll show you that in a moment rather than switch to it now. Now, your station should appear with a green status indicating that you're online, and that should happen within 5 to 15 minutes. If that does not happen within 5 to 15 minutes, then that means you've got a problem of some sort and you need to troubleshoot it and fix it. The station dashboard will also display aircraft that it sees in your vicinity. It will give you the count of the aircraft, the message rate that's incoming. It'll tell you the receiver range. In my case, it's about 50 nautical miles with my antenna, which isn't too bad since it's installed in a window. And it'll also show you the uptime of your receiver. Okay, so let's look now at antenna placement and optimization. Okay, so the antenna placement here is probably the single most important factor that's going to affect your ability to utilize this DIY project. So your antenna should be well placed. In my case, they recommended you could use a window installation, but it cannot be metal window shades. Mine is not. So I do have triple pane glass. I don't know if that affects it or not. I don't think it does. But it's doing fairly well at 50 nautical miles. And I see roughly 400 to 500 planes a day with my antenna. All right, so as I mentioned, the antenna placement and optimization of that antenna is your primary concern. You want to get good height on the antenna. Rooftop is ideal. Attic placement is also ideal. You want to be able to see clear sky view, 360 degrees. In my case, I do not see 360 degrees, but I can't help it. I've got too many trees around me. But unobstructed 360 is the best and optimal view here. Avoid any metal roofs and chimneys, any HVAC equipment external to the house. You want to keep the coaxial cable. If you've got to run to your antenna, you want to keep it as short as possible, because for every 10 feet or so, you lose 3 dB of gain in your antenna. If you do have your antenna outside, you want to make sure you have weatherproofing tape for the coax so that it doesn't get water ingress into the antenna itself. And then the 1090 megahertz band filter, if you've got that, insert that between the antenna and the RTL SDR dongle. If you're doing that flat plane antenna, you'll see this in the description of how to go about doing that. All right, so let's go on to the next one. So what are you going to see? All right, so you're going to see live data output from your project. And in my case, it's shown to me in a web browser on the Flight Radar 24 website. You're going to see, if you're using port 8080, you're going to see local dump 1090 web interface, which probably looks really nice. It's going to show you real-time aircraft positions plotted on a street map. It's going to show you any aircraft details such as call sign, ICAO address. It's going to show you altitude of the aircraft above ground. It's going to show you the speed above ground of the aircraft in knots. It's going to show you the heading currently of the aircraft is taking. It's going to show you what squawk signal it was given by air traffic control. And it's going to show you the total message count. Signal strength is also going to be revealed here in your output. And as I mentioned, it's going to automatically refresh every second, transmits every half second. All right. And so for aircraft tracked simultaneously, you're going to get 5 to 40 plus, depending on number of aircraft in the area and the altitude of the aircraft. Maximum reception, again, is going to be between 150 to 350 nautical miles. With my setup, I only get 50, and that's probably pretty good. If the aircraft is above 30,000 feet, you'll get better reception. All right, and then you're going to get anywhere from 300 to 1,500 messages per second in modern traffic areas. Surface traffic, if you're using MLAT, which is something called multilateration. I opted out of multilateration. That's one of the questions you are asked. I said no. I wish I had said yes, because what multilateration allows you to do, any aircraft above 45,000 feet, you'll be able to pick them up as well, and you won't need to use transponder signal. You can use radar. All right, and then you also get flight radar 24 ranking. My ranking right now is pretty high, believe it or not, even though I only get 50 nautical mile range. And as I said, I believe I'm in day 24 of my service. Okay, and so I think the troubleshooting for common troubleshooting issues are here. I'm not going to go into great detail here, but I will say if you don't have any aircraft appearing, you need to check the dongles to make sure it's seated properly. You need to rerun that test to see if it's being detected. Make sure you've blacklisted that DVB-T, because if you haven't, that'll be an issue for you. You may have very few aircraft in your area, fewer than 5. And in my case, I usually have more than that in my area around the actual regional airport. I'm not, like I said, not too far from the airport. I'm in East Asheville. Okay, and then if the dump 1090 doesn't start, gives you steps on what to do there. If the FR24 feeder is not connecting, it gives you instructions on what to do there. And then if you've got a high CPU temp, my case, my Raspberry Pi is about 65 degrees centigrade, so I'm not worried about it. I do not have a heat sink, but I do have the top taken off of it. And then intermittent signal dropout, it tells you what to do there. It's usually because your dongle's overheating. All right, and so if you do all of that, you should have your ADS-B receiver up and running. You should be feeding information to the Flight Radar 24, and within an afternoon, you should have it all set up. For me, like I said, it took a day to get my equipment from Amazon. As soon as I received it, I set it up, and in an afternoon, I was up and running. So here, the build cost again is $130 or less. The setup time is about 2 to 4 hours from unboxing till you got live data being fed to Flight Radar 24, and then your data improves coverage for everybody, and they take advantage of it worldwide. So the data I share in my DIY build, it can be looked at, can be used by somebody who's in Dubai and wants to see what's going on in Asheville Regional Airport area, United States. Okay. All right. So that's the presentation. And now what I'd like to do is take you out to, if I can here, hold on a minute. Yeah. Come on, cooperate with me here. All right, so, oh, okay. So the next thing I need to do is go back to the website and go down to flight radar. Now, here we go. Here are the subscription plans that I was talking about. Here's the free plan that you sign up for. This is what it gives you. It doesn't give you a lot, but does give you some things. Now, when you have built your DIY project and you start transmitting information within 15 minutes of transmitting information to Stockholm, Sweden, to Flight Radar 24, they will automatically switch you over to this bad guy right here. You'll get a contributor. See if it's up in the corner, contributor. It is a full business commercial account that usually costs $500 a year. You'll get that for free. Okay. And that gives you 60 plus features on the Flight Radar 24 website. And I'll show you some of those here in a moment. Okay, here are my statistics. I am T-KAVL50. All right, that's my assignment. Dan Calloway's radar. And so here's my local IP address. I was first seen on March the 9th at about 5:29:01 local time, 17:29:01 universal time coordinated. Here are my coordinates that I fed into Flight Radar 24. It found me, no problem, and found me within a matter of a few feet of where I was actually. I've got it set up too so that if I'm offline for any reasons, right now I've got online in green right here. And I have been online except for about an hour and a half one day when I went offline because of a power loss in the house. But if I'm offline for an hour or more, it will send me an email saying you're offline. It tells me the uptime here, 98.4%. Software version is that. Here's the sharing key that I use to share my data with Flight Radar 24. And just to give you an idea of how well this thing is working, here's a plot of the antenna that I have set up. And it's telling you the range. This is 35 nautical mile range in that direction, 40 nautical mile range in that direction, 42 in that. So it's about an average of about 45. A good day can do up to 50. But this DIY build will let you go up to 350 nautical miles or greater than 200 nautical miles if you've got everything set up properly and you've got good connection. All right, my ranking right now is this right here. Here's my name. Here's my score. So I'm not too bad for my global ranking and not too bad for my local United States ranking as well. My uptime has been 565 days, which is about 65 hours, which is about 24 days. The max range that I've sent out to with this antenna is 54 nautical miles. And that's the best I've done. And then the average range is roughly 40. Okay. Here's a histogram showing number of contacts. So there's been 13,231 contacts less than 50 nautical miles. Number of aircraft I've seen today, this is Saturday, it's 248. But yesterday I saw a total of 788 aircraft with my antenna. And then here's a hits and positions reporting. Positions and hits, the difference between the two is hits are transponder information, positions are without transponder information. So you're not going to get altitude and all that with just positions, whereas with hits you will. All right, and so here's the daily availability for the last 7 days. And number of aircraft 248, positions reported 12,611, maximum distance of 42 today, and number of hits reported 42,862. All right. And then finally, let's go out to the flight radar rather, map. And so this is what the map looks like. Let me go out to let me click on flight radar 24. And with my account, of course, I do not have any advertisements, which is another good thing. Now, you can use the scroll button on your mouse to scroll in or out. Okay. Here I am. This is the Asheville Regional Airport right there. So I've got a lot of stuff around me. If you click on it, it tells you the conditions going on at the airport right now. It says it's raining. It's 18 degrees Celsius. The wind is at 8 knots at 190 degrees. And then here are some of the latest events. Here are some latest takeoffs from the airport. Here are the latest landings at the airport here. You can click on those and it'll give you more information. All right. And airport statistics, and you've got all of that as well. What I wanted to show you here, so this is one aircraft that's in the vicinity. Let me go way in out here so I can go way in rather to this particular aircraft that's coming in. So it's coming in probably bypassing the airport. If I click on this guy, it's going to tell me that this is a Southwest Airlines flight 2122 that's coming from Pittsburgh and flying to Atlanta. So it's going to bypass the Asheville Regional Airport and land in the Atlanta International Regional Airport. It's been in flight for 47 minutes, and it has another 30 minutes remaining in flight, distance of about 277 kilometers before it reaches Atlanta. It's a Boeing 737, 7H4. Here is the registration number for that aircraft. Here's the serial number. Here's the age of the aircraft. Here's the country of registration. It is a passenger aircraft. Currently, it is flying at an altitude of 34,775 feet GPS and 33,500 or 450 bare altitude. I think that has to do with sea level. All right, and it is in a descent right now because it's coming into the airport in Atlanta, descending at 960 feet per minute on a track of 220. If I want to follow this, well, it's actually traveling 451 knots over the ground. If I want to follow the guy, I can just click the follow button, and it puts him in the middle of the screen, and it keeps him in the middle of the screen. And I can watch him come all the way into the airport and land in Atlanta. I can do that for any aircrafts in the area. Now, if I hear an aircraft over my head, I can go to this screen right here. I can click on the aircraft. You notice the aircraft disappeared right there. That comes and goes. I'm not quite sure why, but it happens. Anyway, make a long story short, I can hear an aircraft, and if it's in the general vicinity of the regional airport, I can click on it and it'll tell me exactly what it is, where it's coming from, where it's going to, what altitude it's flying, et cetera, et cetera. Now, there is an app for the iPhone. I don't think there is one for the Android, but there's one for the iPhone. I've got it. And the neat thing about it is I can go outside. If I hear an aircraft over my head, I can hit the FR button on the app, hold the iPhone into the air in the direction of the sound. A little box will pop up. I bring the phone back down to me. I click the box with my finger, and it pops up and tells me what aircraft it is that's over top of me. And gives me all the information about that aircraft, where it's headed, altitude, how fast it's flying over the ground, et cetera, what direction it's going, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I can go to other areas of the world. I'll show you that. So if I want to go, let me show you this first. This is a lot of information here that you could take a look at. But if I want to go, say, to flight by route, flight by airline, airport flight history by country. So if I want to look at country, I can click on that. And if I want to go to Belgium, look at flights by, in the country of Belgium. I can go to Brussels airport, and this will should take me there. Oh, show on map. Click show on map, and that will zoom me into Brussels airport, tell me all about the airport over here. I can zoom into it or zoom out of it, and I can see all the aircraft. Right now, there isn't anything going on around Brussels. It looks like, not quite sure why, but there isn't anything showing up. But anyway, that's pretty much, I could get into a lot more detail, but the presentation would be a lot longer. That's pretty much the cut and dry of my project. Like I said, it took me 2 days to set it up, and I've used it for 24 days nonstop. And I'm taking advantage of a business subscription with Flight Radar 24 in Stockholm, Sweden. Anybody have any questions?
Is it possible for us to see the dump 1090 map, the one that's peculiar to you?
That I cannot show you because I don't have port 8080 running.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you had port 8080, I would be able to show you that.
Is
Rusty?
the free subscription good for more than a year?
It's good forever.
All right.
As long as you run, as long as you do not miss data being transmitted back to Sweden for using Flight Radar 24. If you miss, I think it's 2 consecutive days of data, they will drop you back down to a free subscription. They assume you've left. If you lose a few hours or you have a power outage for a day, it's not going to matter. But as long as I'm transmitting data back to Flight Radar 24, I can keep this account as long as Flight Radar 24 is up and running. All right, and so let's see here. It seems like there was something else I wanted to show you. The life of me, remember what it was.
Rusty, did you have a question?
Rusty, did you have a question?
You are muted, Rusty.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay. Yeah, I'm this fascinating because it's an example of distributed information, and it's an example of how communities of like-minded, interested people gather over an interest. I mean, whether it's stamp collecting or you name it. And in this case, I guess the only thing exchanging hands is information. And it strikes me that the broadcast system was designed to keep moving. It was like a many-to-many relationship. The many planes and those ground stations could be aware of the other planes, which are constantly changing. So I'm trying to understand what are the uses of this, because I see that there must be a large participating membership of reporting stations like Dan is, but then somebody must, they have these commercial licenses or services that Dan described. So someone must maybe, I'm wondering, what are the uses of this data that is aggregated to a website and then categorized and reprocessed and posted for the world to see? And I'm kind of wondering, well, what are the users that need this information? Even what are the reasons why it's valuable to have Dan Calloway reporting 50 nautical miles radius, filling in a part of the earth here? How is this used? What are the motivators for it? I also asked the question, was it the case that the host company in Sweden just identified an elaborate collection of data and is monetizing that in the sense of recreation rather than some primary business use?
Yeah.
So Dan, tell me what are the what's the reason for this community of data gatherers?
Okay. Well, I am as new to this as you are. I do not know all of the uses that Flight Radar 24 captures this data and uses, other than to say that it's used so that other people around the world, especially in the oceans, because they take advantage of satellite ADS as well, know how much traffic is crossing a particular airport. Maybe somebody, a pilot, is getting ready to fly to Dubai and needs to know what's the congestion. I mean, are there any, is the airport full? Is it going to be, because Dubai is the busiest airport in the world, by the way. That kind of thing. You can go up on the Flight Radar 24.com, and there's some information up there. It will tell you exactly, it'll answer your question. I can't answer your question to your satisfaction right now because I'm too new to it myself. I don't think air traffic controllers use it, but I do know pilots use it because FlightAware is something that pilots use on their laptops. I mean, not laptops, but tablets when they're in the cockpit. And so they can see aircraft transiting in their specific area of their aircraft and know that I've got an aircraft, 12 nautical miles in front of me at bearing at a certain, 140 or whatever, and be concerned about it or not be concerned about it, whether it's no factor or whatever. But ADS-B, by the way, is not just used for aviation. It's also used, it's what's called SDR, software-defined radio. It's also used for radio transmission for shortwave and for the regular radio band. And that's another thing I'm going to investigate. I'm going to set up another Raspberry Pi and use the same kind of setup for radio, and because you can do this for radio and for aviation. In this particular case, I wanted to do aviation because I'm interested in aviation, and I can see now a map that shows me worldwide all planes that are flying into various airports. And the other thing this will allow you to do, that's kind of interesting, Rusty, that may answer part of your question, is you can take a flight that, let's say, a Delta airline flight that went from point A to point B, and you want to watch the flight again to see what courses that airline took. You can do a replay of it through this subscription that I have. So, and that's something that you can't do without the business subscription. And there's lots of other features. Like I said, there's 60 plus features. I haven't even touched the surface. Now, does this company sell data that you collect? Yes, absolutely. Not your data, but they sell the aircraft data that you're gathering and transmitting back to them. So they're making money on it. But it's still open source product. It's still open source software and that kind of thing. So the software and the hardware is open source. It's not proprietary. One of the other things I did mean to mention is that unlike this doesn't use radar, by the way, unless you're using MLAT. Back in World War II, you had a system, the United States did anyway, called something called IFF with radar, and it was called IFF, which stood for identification friend or foe. And what that was your aircraft sent out a signal that when the radar hit your aircraft, If your IFF signal did not indicate you were a friendly, then you were a target. Okay. That whole system has been replaced by the transponder system that the FAA now uses. Most aircraft, I say most, not all aircraft around the world, well, especially the United States with the FAA, are supposed to use transponders. They're required by civilian aircraft. Some military aircraft and some other aircraft, drones and gliders don't use transponders. But pretty soon, every aircraft in the air, regardless of what it is, will be using a transponder. That's coming. So that transponder is something I capture. It comes in as a radio signal to the antenna, and then through the dongle and the Raspberry Pi, it gets converted to digital data, and then gets sent back out via the internet to Flight Radar 24 or Flight Aware. Okay.
Dan,
I think.
I'll mention.
Go ahead.
I find it it's an interesting phenomenon, the concept of a distributed community of observers, and I think back to the thing called the Civil Air Patrol, which
Right.
Was back in the days when the air was not as filled with so many flights, but you know. That visual identification was the whole modus operandi.
Well, I'll tell you, Rusty, like I said, Dubai is the busiest airport in the world. And when I went over to Flight Radar 24 and homed in on Dubai, there were so many aircraft, it looked like bees in a hive. So I had to zoom way in order to individually identify a particular aircraft. That's how many aircraft were flying around the airport. I don't know how the air traffic controllers keep up with it. Gene, I think you had a question. Was it Gene or Pete? Pete, you had a question?
Pete, yeah. Are you allowed to put up an American flag outside your window?
I am.
You can put if you use a PVC pipe, you can put your antenna inside and probably get a longer range.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, it is.
And it's easy to try. You might want to give it a
Yeah,
shot.
I will try that. I have a flag right now in the window. So
Okay. Or you could just tape it to the outside of the pole. But sometimes the HOAs get upset if you try to.
why does the flag make a difference? I'm
It's
curious.
not the flag. It's that you get your antenna outside.
Oh, gotcha. All right.
No one's going to notice the antenna that's alongside the flagpole.
Right, or inside the PVC pipe.
Yeah,
That's
Oh, I got you. Yeah, I see it. You're hiding your purpose.
You got it.
Is that the same kind of idea as you familiar with the Weather Underground,
Yes.
where all the where you've got hundreds of participants in the area who have a little weather station set up,
Correct.
and
Mhm.
then they transmit the data to.
Yeah, it's the same kind of idea.
Okay.
Same kind of idea. Except it's weather data, obviously. It's not aircraft data. I'm curious, as like I said, I chose the Raspberry Pi Model 3B Plus because I wasn't using it, and I thought, okay. And I'm using my Raspberry Pi 5 right now for Casa OS. I'm still using Casa OS, which I did a presentation on a long time ago. And but I'm thinking of taking that Raspberry Pi 4 and setting it up for SDR, software-defined radio, and being able to listen to shortwave and regular broadcast band that way over the internet.
Pete, your place up in Asheville, you could put an excellent antenna up there.
Yes, and actually I started when they first came out with the ADSB many years ago. It was developed for use in Europe because they were switching to digital TV broadcasts, and they were going to use that to allow the older TVs to still receive a signal.
Mm-hmm.
But they wound up selling so many for other uses. I think that became the main reason that they still make them. I'm not sure. I mean, everybody has digital TVs now. You don't have converters anymore. So that's
Okay.
probably the only reason that ADSB is still available to us.
One other thing I forgot to mention, this is important for you guys if you're interested in building this. I spent $37 for my project, okay? But you can build this project absolutely free. And the way to do that is if you go up on Flight Radar 24's website, they have information with videos on how you can obtain, request rather, hardware and software from them so that you can set it up yourself at no cost to you. What they will do is they'll ship you an antenna, which is much longer than mine, and a receiver box, which is much better than the dongle and Raspberry Pi configuration. That receiver box takes care of the Raspberry Pi dongle combination. And then the antenna is one that you can mount on a pole, okay, with a coax. They send you, I believe they send you 100 feet of coaxial cable. They send you all of that for free. You have 1 week to set it up. If you can't get online in 1 week, then you have to return it. Okay, so you got to know pretty much what you're doing to request it. But
no pressure.
Absolutely free. And I think it's a week. It might be 2 weeks, but I think it's a week. You have to set it, have it up and running within a week's time. That's all I got.
No. Thank you, Dan. That was really good.
So you're welcome.
Presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Before we move on from that topic, I do want to say that everyone should have one of these. Like, these are just for the price you pay for them, and you don't need to run them on a Raspberry Pi. You certainly can, but you can just plug them into your laptop, throw an antenna on it, use some open source software, and I mean, you can run this software on Windows. It doesn't have to run on Linux, but
Right.
we're here. So
or Mac.
we're yes, right. So you can, anyone can play with these. These are good gifts for any like tech-minded, relative. These are just, and one thing I did with them, I initially just started like I'm not a huge like aviation guy, but you got to do that at least once, right? So I did the dump 1090 thing, and I couldn't get like much signal here, but I took the laptop to the top of the ridge and got a lot more. So I'm like, okay, that works. Okay, but I'm kind of bored of that. But then I just started looking through the frequency. Of course, you can get FM radio broadcasts. You can get various, shortwave was mentioned. You can listen to all the crazy religious channels on shortwave, which is a lot of what a lot of shortwave is. I didn't find any number stations. I wish I had, but no. But you just look for things, and you'll find some things that are clearly digital signals. You'll see, for one, you listen to it and it's noise for you, right? Or a pattern of beeps and bloops or something. But you'll even just see it on the waterfall graph. Oh, that looks digital after a while. And then you're like, okay, what digital thing uses these frequency ranges? And I found like a paging protocol and was able to find a decoder for that paging protocol and realized that people are sending, basically protected health information over this protocol. And I ended up messaging a bunch of local health organizations about the things they ought not be doing,
Right.
since it's, adjacent to what I do for work.
Did they
So
listen
that
to you?
was a lot of fun. And then
What was that you were holding up?
this is the device. This is the
That's the dongle.
USB dongle. Mine is got a bit of an age to it. I think it's a V3. There are V4s out there, I think, or a V3G. There's something newer than this,
Yeah.
but this is very functional. They do get hot. When you mentioned a heat sink, was that for your Pi or for the dongle?
It was for my Pi.
Okay, because the dongles they warm up for sure. I don't know if it matters what frequencies you're doing or whatever, but especially if you're, not in a necessarily the coolest of space to begin with, they could definitely overheat. But yeah, I haven't used mine in a while, but there's zero regrets for this guy because I'll probably come back to it for some fun project. And there's the RTL. This is actually a creation of the RTL SDR blog.
Right.
They put this out. They have this made and sell it. And the RTL SDR blog is full of fun ideas, many ideas that you would never undertake yourself because they're just crazy and complex and require skills that at least I don't have. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
it is. It's a fun read for those inclined in that way. So that's my spiel on that. I can't I this was like a, oh, what's that? I learned about it one day. I'm like, oh, I can go buy this thing for, I think this was $30, and I got a couple
Yeah.
antennas with it. Let's see if I can find one of them. There's this bigger one which has a lead, has a base, obviously. Got to put it in the frame, so that extends. And of course, your size is, the size of the antenna has to do with the frequency that you want to receive. So you
Exactly.
need to, don't just make it as long as possible. Make it as long as it's supposed to be for
Supposed
the
to
right
be, right.
frequency.
Especially when you're doing SDR for, software-defined radio.
Right. So, yeah, lots of fun. So, and anything else on this topic before we quickly go around the room for 40 minutes?
Well, just going to say, I really enjoyed doing this because, our meeting was on the 7th of March, and by the 9th of March, I was up and running, easy to do. So if I can do it, you can do it.
All right. Well, thanks again, Dan.
We're getting
And-
some noise from somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah, when I start going around the room, I'll mute everyone other than the speaker. So I'm just going to give Dan a second to talk about anything else he has to say before we hand it on. So, Dan?
Okay. I don't think I have anything else to talk about, Brent. I've spent most of my time working with this. I wanted to learn as much about it as I could so that I could be at least somewhat fluent. I'm no expert in it, but I've spent most of my time with this, and I haven't really done a lot with Linux in general that I can think of.
All right. Thanks.
Wait, Brent, before you leave the topic, 3 or 4 years ago, I'll tell you a personal anecdote that involved Flight Radar 24. I live way out in the country, and every night around 10 p.m., an airplane would fly overhead and had a very loud engine on it, and we could not figure out who this aircraft belonged to or what it was doing. So I downloaded Flight Radar 24, and I could see the aircraft approaching and then fly over us, and clicked on the identification data, and it was Quest Diagnostics, the medical laboratory, and they run a kind of a milk run between Greensboro, North Carolina, and Knoxville, Tennessee. And that was the particular flight that was coming straight over my head.
I don't want to drink that milk, Alan.
Yeah.
No, but then they would go from Knoxville, I think, to Johnson City, Tennessee, and down to Greenville. But it was a perfectly good use of Flight Radar 24. It solves a long-standing mystery for me.
That's great.
Well, that's cool. Anything else, Alan?
The other reason, ADSB, and Dan mentioned this, it's basically used for the flight control and for the pilot inside the cockpit is looking at his display and can visually see aircraft that they're crossing paths or getting in close proximity. And ADSB also ties in with a system called TCAS. I think it's called Traffic Collision Avoidance System. and it automatically sounds an alert if another aircraft is on the same altitude and headed where it's going to intersect with the path of the plane that you're piloting. So that was one of the main purposes of ADS-B. It's a great system, really enhanced airline and aircraft safety.
Yeah, TCAS is not triggered unless the aircraft are closer than 500 feet from each other in altitude difference.
Could
Even if
I
they're on-
insert a question? Alan brings up some of the points that I was trying to understand, and that is there a shortage of receiving stations to aggregate the data? And it sounds like from what Alan is saying, or others, or maybe in the following statement, it sounds like the contributors of data are also all of the moving objects. That is, all of those planes in flight which are broadcasting are also receiving, and as they are receiving, they are posting. So there must be some sort of centralized data warehouse for aggregating this someplace other than Sweden. So it sounds like the website and service in Sweden is just another, how would I say, another mode of distribution. Airplanes flying that broadcast also receive. The question is anybody is everyone processing with their onboard computer, or are they aggregating the data to a central server somewhere on a national basis or on a regional basis? Are there central servers that are aggregating this such that there is no need for, in other words, there's no blank spots in the landscape? So Dan, as you came online with your broadcast data, and which is uploaded to a server, was there a shortage of data prior to you coming online? I mean, you're not in a radio silence area, or
No.
so it sounds like there are multiple aggregation servers for this data. And when it first occurred, it was basically a many-to-many relationship between flying objects. And then as it's evolved, there's more and more people on the ground that have an interest to follow it also.
Okay, yeah, but to correct something that you said, aircraft do not receive data ADS-B. It's a one-way unencrypted transmission from the transponder to the ground relay stations, or in my case, the DIY project. All right, and so the aggregate data gets collected and then it gets sent to a central place, like a platform like Flight Radar 24 or FlightAware or some other place. And the only way that the aircraft can see other planes around them is to either look at the data coming from those platforms or radar. They have onboard radar. They do not have ADS-B receiving information. It's transmitting only.
Dan, I'm not sure if that's true.
I think it is.
Because a lot of aircraft have Garmin glass or Garmin avionics.
Yeah, but that's Garmin radar. That's the radar, though.
No, it's not radar. They will show, I believe they can see a similar visual display of other aircraft in the area.
Okay.
And
well, my information said that ADS-B was a one-way unencrypted. So that's why I didn't think that they received information, ADS-B. Maybe there are other systems on board that Garmin uses that allows them to do that I'm not aware of. But I know that they do that. I just assumed that was radar signals.
And in response to Rusty's question about Flight Radar 24 based in Sweden, the Flight Aware and ADS-B exchange is another open source provider. They are located in different areas around the world.
Right.
And aggregate data.
Right. I don't know where FlightAware's platform is in the world. Do you?
No, I don't. But I've been to the ADS-B exchange, and that's an interesting website as well. And you can download their software and use it. It's similar to Flight Radar 24,
right,
and the others.
Okay.
Thanks, Alan. Did you have any more generic stuff for this month?
No, not really. Just my normal trying to keep all my devices running properly, and but no, that's about it for me.
All right, thanks, Alan. Gene?
All right.
I think we lost him.
Huh? Am I gone?
We got him.
It's frozen.
We hear you.
We can hear him just fine.
Okay. I have been having fun with networking printers, but that's a
Can
whole
you
other
hear us, Gene?
And but I'm kind of waiting for the new release of long-term support Ubuntu system, which is it's due in the around the end of April, I think. And it's called, I think, Resolute Raccoon, which Ubuntu is built on Debian, so it's yeah, Dan, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm kind of waiting on that. I'm probably going to go ahead and install. I'm currently on 26, and they say you can get 10 or even 15 years, I guess, depending on what your what kind of choices you make. You know, there's something called Ubuntu Pro, where you allow them a little more freedom to update your machine and your software or whatever. So other than that, just there again, as Alan said, trying to keep my machines running and updated as much as possible. So I guess that's about it for me.
Thanks, Gene. Pete?
Okay. Not much new in the way of computer stuff for me. Really enjoyed this presentation. Thanks a lot, Dan. I really
you're welcome.
appreciate it. I'm going to be heading back up to the mountain soon. I think right now we're up to 80 degrees. It's supposed to be up in the mid 80s today. So it's getting a little bit warm down here. That's all I've got, Brent.
Well, we're not missing it by much, Pete, up here. I think we've been in the 80s the past couple of days, haven't we, guys?
Yeah, 71 now.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Well,
It's been hot and dry, Pete.
I know. We're in a stage 2 drought down here. We're only allowed to water our lawns once a week. All the rain reservoir thingies you see riding around are little puddles or just completely dried out. It's not a good situation, and they're starting to have problems with wildfires in the in the areas that are grown up with vegetation.
Well, thanks, Pete. Rusty?
My news is that there's just always another little episode or anecdote of some AI interaction on one project or another. My primary AI companion, my only AI companion, is Gemini. I haven't bothered to try out any other platforms, but it just still is so amazing to me to have discussion about a graphical interface. Namely, I'm using Blender to model LiDAR surfaces that will be modified for landscape purposes and for purposes of house siding, foundation siding, so that you can see shadows, you can determine sunlight access in the spacing, all of these things. And it's just amazing to me to be struggling with the modeling and navigation tools, and to go to an artificial intelligence that is using language only to, we use no pictures. If you cannot describe it with words, you cannot submit your question, nor can you get an answer to the question except through use of words. Yet the ultimate thing that you're doing is clicking on icons, navigating to here or there on the screen, pulling down menus where the menu choice is, item number 8 on the list that has a sub menu that goes somewhere else. And it just amazes me the amount of help that you can get from a well-organized language model that is aware of a big volume of previous use of language. And I think of this, the immediacy of that access compared to the combined intelligence of a forum. Let's say if you go to a Blender forum where you post your problem and wait for someone to be benevolent enough to help you, it's just so totally different in volume of experience to be using a tool like this. And it all I can say is I'm just glad to have had a taste of it, and I keep coming back for more. Where it's going to take us for AI, I have no idea. But all I can say is it is such a useful tool. And I don't know whether I won't quibble on the meaning of whether you call it general intelligence or just applied intelligence that is like a powerful search engine. All I can say is it's extremely helpful. So that's all I have to say.
Further on that, I was listening to the BBC this morning, and they had a segment on a kid in Orlando, Florida, and they were interviewing the kid's mother. He had gotten involved with an AI bot as a companion, as a girlfriend, and the kid is like 14 years old. and he ended up killing himself.
Yeah.
So I'm sure most of you have probably heard about horror stories like this. But Rusty, just don't get involved with an AI girlfriend, okay?
All right, thanks, Rusty, and thanks, Gene. Larry has mentioned that it is noisy where he's at, so he's not going to chime in. And Arnold, as always, is not joining in with the mic. And he did say what he's using. Where is it? Where did I just saw it? I saw it. Where was it? He's using Mint 22.3 with no issues. So good on him for that. I think he's the most productive, problem-free Linux user in the world, because I've never heard him report anything other than he's running his Mint without issues. As for me, not a lot going on the personal Linux world the last month. I've sort of been focused on more musical pursuits. I started playing trombone again for the first time in decades, and really enjoying the pursuit. One lesson I've learned far too late in life is, if you do something as a hobby, you don't have to be good at it. You don't have to have any real success if it's fun. And the way I was learning that initially was stuff with music, and then I realized, well, it's like, why don't I play trombone again? Because that's something I've already gotten over various hurdles on. I can read the music. I kind of know the instrument, so why not? It's like, and sure enough, I pick it up, and within a few hours of playing and my embouchure starting to develop, it's fun again. I can play and just enjoy myself. So I anyone who has not learned that lesson, it's like, it's not about productivity, it's about fun. So don't set unreasonable expectations for the things you do. If you enjoy doing them, just do them. And it's fine, and you're allowed to spend reasonable amounts of money on yourself to achieve those goals. That being said, my trombone was $55, so I think that's fine. We've talked many times about taxes here, and it is that season. Hope everyone is figuring out their taxes. 11 days left. I don't know if it's the 15th this year where that falls, but it's going to be somewhere around there. So not many days left. I have been an addicted TurboTax user for years. This year I'm like, this is getting too expensive. And this year my taxes are simpler than they've been in a while. So why don't I consider something else? I used TaxSlayer last year for my son, and that was fine. I sort of did a side-by-side of TurboTax and Free Tax USA, opted to use Free Tax USA, also opted to do Free Tax USA for my son instead of TaxSlayer. So that's where I'm at right now. They're all very similar. I think TaxSlayer might have been completely free for the state return even, but I really did like the Free Tax USA GUI a little bit better than TaxSlayer's. It really was very similar to what I was doing with TurboTax. So for anyone who is looking to jump from, actual physical, software they own to something in the cloud, or again, sick of paying TurboTax amounts of money, then I would suggest doing it. And I'm not suggesting Free Tax USA, although I kind of am, but the alternatives seem to be pretty good, is what I'm getting at. So that's my spiel there. Still using Debian at home without any real problems. Debian 12, I think, on this machine, so I could probably stand to update. Oracle Linux at work, which still, I hate saying that. I'm not a fan of Oracle, but there's reasons I'm using Oracle Linux, mainly the support of the patching product we have, which is, it's nice actually. My SIM, my security information events manager is running on Oracle Linux now and gets patched without my intervention. It works along with the native patch manager, so I can patch it too when I do my round of patches on the Debian machines. And then it won't break anything by patching it, running the DNF upgrade on it won't break it. It'll just it will proceed normally with patching from that point. Pete, you had a question?
I just wanted to mention that Parry was contacted by NASA to put their big radio telescopes back in operation to help track the space shot that just went off after 50 years.
Nice.
Is that the installation out of Brevard?
Yes, it's in the middle of the forest, south of Brevard.
Wow. So it hadn't been used, and then all of a sudden it is?
No, it was used by the NSA back in the 50s or 60s to track Russian satellites. And then they didn't use it anymore, so they sold it. And the guy that bought it set up a foundation to provide training for school kids. And they set up all these programs, and schools all around Western North Carolina would bring their classes down and get to play with all this cool stuff. And evidently, part of it is up for sale again. Whoever bought the whole deal needs to raise more money for the foundation, so they may sell off some of the land that's around it. I forget how many acres it's got. I want to say like 300 and something acres it's in the middle of, but they're still going to keep the Parry stands for Pisgah Astronomical Radio Institute. And it's to help schools get kids interested in STEM and physics and all that good stuff. They're still going to keep going, maybe a few less acres. But and they were able to get those big radio telescopes. They're some of the biggest in the country. I forget how high they are, 200 and something feet. They were able to get them back to tracking. I don't know how they did that after so many years. And these guys are all volunteers. They're not professionals, but they did it. So, hats off to them. That's it.
Just one more thing for me. I have made a new convert. I'm always, to some extent, evangelizing for Linux in my various spheres. And someone I work closely with at work finally made the jump for his personal machine and is just extremely pleased. I think he went with Kashi OS because it's very gaming focused. And he's extremely pleased with that. It just runs all his games just fine. Like on Steam, things just work, which was a pleasant surprise for him. So he's moving that direction and seems very pleased so far. Plus, I think he's actually a server systems type engineer. So, and we need more Linux expertise in that realm so I can stop doing it. And yeah, he's really going to be one of the folks who are embracing Linux at our organization and
well, Dan
help
just
support it.
sent out a newsletter that has Kashi at the top of the list.
There you go. I was going to say that.
Of distributions that people are interested in. uh, that that's a good thing. But I think the more telling thing is the people who have been unfriended by Windows 10 and realize now that if they get back on the merry-go-round, they're going to have to buy a whole new system to run Windows 11. And
Exactly.
I know some folks who have already, lost like printers. That's how I got into my printer purgatory, I guess, or it could be Hades, printer Hades. I think. It's somewhere between the 12th layer of purgatory and the first layer of Hades. So, but stuff just is not going to work with Windows 11 if you can't get a what is it? They're asking for some kind of firmware verification or hardware verification or something like that in Windows 11 that Windows 10 never cared about.
Yeah, it wants the secure boot stuff to function, or trusted platform, or I forget.
And I guess
exactly
it's all headed toward what is it? I heard somewhere that if you buy an Apple setup, you can't like replace any part of it because it's all
glued together.
Yeah.
Proprietary. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Could I interject in this topic?
Always.
I wanted to point out with there. Brent mentioned tax software earlier, and then now we have Windows 10 mentioned, and so I'm going to mention both of them, namely in the case of TurboTax, just simply because they won't support it. TurboTax has said, well, we dare not have a customer who's using an unsupported operating system. So they have abandoned Windows 10. So even if it might appear to be runnable, because it's nothing but a bunch of cascading pages that are kind of operating like a website. Well, my understanding is that H&R Block, their version of tax software, is essentially a whole collection of web pages to gather the data and picture the results. And so my goal is to go to H&R Block. I'm going to do it on an extension, but I wanted to ask how many refugees there are that have been running Windows 10 solely for TurboTax, and among those that are refugees for that reason, what is the flight path to?
I'll give you one. Download a like a developer virtual image for Windows 11, or you can just use an ISO and build it on something virtual. Don't register it, because I mean, you don't need to, right? You're using it in a very limited fashion. Yeah, maybe it's not 100% kosher, but it's fine. And run TurboTax inside that virtual, and and don't look back. That's what I would do.
Are you saying to run a virtual operating system under Linux that is a Windows 11 image?
I've been partial to VirtualBox, but you certainly could use the native virtualization in Linux, and QEMU, or it's been a while since.
Birdman.
Yeah, there's various hypervisors and so forth. But you can, I would just boot either an image, a pre-built image, or just install via an ISO, and then you can just run the software in there. And that, again, that should do it. That should be good enough. And it's certainly plenty secure if it's probably the most secure option. If you use this one image for one thing and that's it, that's like perfect. That is better than using your standard PC that could have gotten infected a year ago, right?
Mhm.
And then using it for that purpose.
Yeah, Rusty, I use TaxAct in the web browser. I've been using it for years. I won't go back.
So you're running just a web browser as your
Yeah, it's called TaxAct.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's
Thanks
just
for that.
fine. I've been doing it for 7-8 years probably.
Anything else, Rusty?
No, thank you.
Just my small response to some of that. Yeah, it's always really irked me if you have hardware that otherwise meets your needs, that a software limitation is going to force you to buy new hardware.
Yep.
That's just bonkers, especially with RAM being what it is. This is not the time to buy a computer if you really don't need to. So that would be very, very, very frustrating if that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as Dan,
yeah, I just wanted. If you're not finished, go ahead and finish. I mean,
yeah, I was going to say, I think gaming could easily take a turn, so that especially if there's some, generally drivers have not been as good on Linux as they have been on other platforms, on Windows generally. But if that doesn't continue to be the case, if the support is there because of Steam and other things supporting Linux, I really do see that Linux could get a certain cachet amongst the gaming community, and that has trickled down. And that, I mean, we all have historically talked about, the year of the Linux desktop. I think that's irrelevant now because the desktop has kind of died in favor of the mobile platforms. But
yeah.
We may see that if Windows continues to be inconvenient for people for whatever reason, that there could be wider adoption than perhaps we ever expected.
Okay, I just wanted to put a shout out for a newsletter. I do a monthly newsletter now. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter, highly encourage you to do so. Go to the website, click on the button, and then put in your information and submit a subscription request, and I'll make sure you get on the list. There's about 12 people taking the monthly newsletter now. And
it's really good, Dan. I like it.
Okay, thank you. I put a lot of effort into it, so I'm going to be doing that every month. So if you haven't signed up for it, please do.
Will do, and thanks for all your efforts there, Dan. And
Okay.
we are pretty much right at time, so any parting words from anyone?
Nope. Happy Easter.
Yeah, happy Easter all. And see you next month. Anyone got anything right now as far as an idea for next time? I'll rack my brain in case there's anything I've been itching to do. All right. Well, we'll see you next time. Thanks all.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Brett.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.